She's trying to join. She will be here.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I didn't have anything else for changes. On the minutes, but I guess we'll just leave it for the next meeting to vote on anyway. So this will be like a intimate meeting with all of us. We'll get to like dive into whatever we want to dive into, which is great. So I guess a lot of that will be the follow-up items. The budget request, and then also the reimbursement request for, on behalf of Jay Mason.
Yeah, so the budget hearings are still going on. I know that they had departmental hearings, I think, over the last week. So we don't know what will or won't make it into the budget. We do expect it to be a challenging budget season. So I think probably around end of May, early June, they'll probably have more of those things solidified. I do know that for the reimbursement request that Jay Mason made, that request was rejected through the system. I don't have any further information on. Yeah, so in order to get a reimbursement, you have to fill out the reimbursement form, and then it has to go through multiple levels of approval within the city with the identified kind of account that you're pulling from, the information. And I know that at some point along that line, the request was rejected. I don't have any additional insight on why it was rejected. If I were speculating, I would say part of it is because it wasn't for something that was planned for within the fiscal budget, and even though funding sources were identified for that along the way, it didn't meet the approval task. I think that going forward, depending on what happens within the budget, I think part of it is because it's an individual. Actually, I don't know. I'm speculating completely.
That's like anything about it?
Yes, so they just really don't have anything. The only thing that I know is that it was rejected. The request was rejected. So
$700 request, and like
I
I
am
know,
just a
you're-
messenger.
So to take it off of your plate, who can we follow up?
There really isn't any follow-up that you can do. It's kind of when the request is rejected at that level.
We were told that we would get approval for this already. So
Well, it was my understanding, though, that in part of that, the idea was if we work within existing vendors, for example, I think that Paul even gave the example that, that we couldn't give the ROTC the money to buy food, but we could buy pizzas for them, for example. So there can be existing kind of line items. I don't know if that was a piece of what went into the rejection. I don't know at what point along the line it was rejected, but I just do know that it's one of those things that there's not really an appeal process for it.
we don't need an appeal process. So we have like a every 6-month meeting with the manager, the city manager standing, and I think that's just what we're gonna have to do is bring it up at that point.
That is up to you.
It's like, it's a $700 thing, but it's money out of like our pockets as volunteers, which is very,
But I do think whatever the budget hearings kind of produce, there are probably ways to plan better for next year so that it fits within an existing kind of line item wherever that falls. And so when it gets closer to that time, we can definitely go through that process
for next year.
for FY25.
Yeah, so that's happening now, right?
Those budget hearings are happening now. The budget itself will be released probably end of May, early June.
Okay, and just to close the loop on that process, we've put in like a proposed budget for FY25 for us
Correct.
for funding. So as long as that gets approved, we won't have any issues with getting reimbursed for any.
That is the way that it should work.
Okay.
There are always
Alright.
challenges.
What's that?
There are always challenges, but that is the way it should work if it gets approved.
Okay.
I
I'm just
can't
gonna
guarantee.
go ahead and say, like, we're not going to put on a sustainability summit if we don't have prior approval for getting reimbursed for things that come out of our pockets.
That makes sense.
That's an unfair expectation on the people here that donate their time and their money and their efforts, and to have a request for a reimbursement on an event that's put on for the benefit of the city, denied is, for whatever reason, if it's a clerical error, if it's an administrative error, hopefully we can get that figured out. But especially this is coming out of a prior chair Mason's pocket, so that would be a really hard farewell gift to him. And yeah, anyway, so that's all I'm going to say. So follow-up item on that, we're going to address that at a meeting that we have with the city manager, unless there's another avenue you'd like to proceed.
There's no avenue that I can recommend to you.
All righty. So the next thing is the communications follow-up, which I know you've already put together a comprehensive response to that. I just was wondering if there's any other updates you've offered.
There's not. I have maybe an idea, if I may. So just going over, just so so Brian wasn't, doesn't know about the communications update. So the web page. First of all, let's address the web page. Wasn't a second website for Sustainability Council. It was a web page that was linked back to the staff directory that had Chris's name in it. So I did update that with the new information. I kept searching every day for Google and seeing if it would come off. It still comes up as second to you, but when you click on it, it goes to the current information. So it would to Catherine instead of. So there's at least that. It will go away when Google changes their algorithms. So like if you go on Bing and look, it doesn't happen. It just has something the way with Google is.
I mean, if it's all leading to the same page.
Yeah, so that's okay then. Yeah, okay, so.
Oh, great. Okay.
So that part is fixed.
Thanks. Yeah.
There's no more updates on Facebook, but I know you were saying that front-facing advocacy was important last time. And so we were working on some federal grants, and I came across this information that really surprised me, that there's several tracks in Lowell that they have, they're in like the 97th to 99th percentile in lack of internet access. So there's one track, 2501731190. It's in Back Central. They have a population of about 2,700. They're in the 99th percentile in the nation for lack of internet access, and that translates to about 47.5% without, which is about 1,285 people. And the interesting thing about that track as well, the real opportunity there is there's an area in the 97th percentile in the nation for home dwellings that are built before 1960. So I know that you wanted to work a lot with property owners and renters to help weatherize and things like that. So in the meantime, where we're trying to get your Facebooks, all that fixed with the social media to reach those people, there's an opportunity to maybe reach out to people who don't have that type of access and sort of help them with weatherization and energy bills and things like that.
If they don't have internet, if they have a cell phone, do they still have like cell access to the internet?
In theory, if they could have, but people don't have, not everybody has unlimited data, or they might be, they might have phones for example, that are supplemented by the government but have a limited amount of data that they can draw from. And so when you're just out of that data, you're just out, So that's just, just an idea, thinking about people who don't have access to the internet that, I know we talk a lot about equity and inclusion.
I mean, that's very interesting data. I didn't know we were in like the 99th percentile for, but they can still access the internet if they have a smartphone. Like they could.
The smartphones are very expensive. I mean, you know, if people can't afford internet, I don't want to presume what they could and could not afford otherwise. So just thinking if they may not have access, I'm just throwing out some ideas.
Internet's expensive,
Yeah, so,
so
yeah.
it might be cheaper for them to have a smartphone with internet access.
But you pay for that internet access through your carrier.
No, I get it,
Yeah.
but the internet access is also very expensive.
Mhm.
You
But
pay for internet access.
I think though the idea though, and I think the opportunity that Cynthia was kind of pointing out is, you know, we have very diverse people with diverse needs in the city. And I think that a lot of times these people that we may not think of in terms of like our day-to-day lives and what we can access, maybe there are additional ways we should be looking to proactively engage them in the types of things that we're doing with sustainability. And I don't know how long it might take to get the Facebook thing resolved, but I guess the idea is if you don't have access to that, well, how are we going to reach the people that also may not have access to Facebook or to those kinds of communications? And how can we create comprehensive strategies to really reach those most in need in our community?
That was really just, I was looking at, you know, it might be a while before we can figure out the access to Facebook because I couldn't get that. And I did forward that to MIS and they've made a formal request to Facebook and they're going through the process. We looked through all of Sophie's information she left behind. I
Is there
did,
like a way to get to her email or no?
no, well, she did not use her work email to set up the account. If you go in and try to,
Oh, okay, yeah.
so
okay.
there's no way, I have no idea what email address she used.
It's the Jeep, so so I think we went through this the last meeting, but I think, so it's her Lowell.gov email that's listed as the contact, but maybe it was her Gmail that was listed.
Perhaps.
So there might be some email going to her Lowell.gov.
There's
Nothing?
nothing.
Okay. all
No,
right.
yeah, so,
There you go. So I might just reach out to her personally and see if we can get to her Gmail account or something. But no, that's a good suggestion. So you mentioned there were grants involved?
oh no, I found this information while I was looking at federal grants that we're working on for energy
Okay.
related issues.
All right.
And I just thought that was an interesting opportunity. If, you know, you're waiting for a bit, trying to figure out, you know, the internet access and how to,
So what we're looking for, like for the Facebook stuff, it's to really like share things like events that are going on in the city, Earth Day things, do what is part of our charter, which is to advocate for sustainability in the city and spread awareness and things like that, to help further your mission as a sustainability department. So if we don't have access to our Facebook account, that's hindering that. But yeah, in the meantime.
yeah, I understand that. But this is also a way to advocate in a different way, is what I was saying. Yeah.
So are
so-
you saying we should just like go to these houses? in
I'm,
person?
that was, it's really not, you know, I know I was just saying, you said that it was a, you know, big goal for you guys to work on front-facing advocacy.
Mhm. Yeah,
And so I was just looking at ways without having access to your Facebook account right now so that you wouldn't be held back by that limitation. There might be some other things we could do until we get access to that. And that was just, you know, I ran across this information. And when something, I don't have access, for example, if I can't proceed with something in the way I would like, and there's not a lot I can do about it right now, I always just ask myself, what is the opportunity in this? And so I was just thinking about, so what's the opportunity in this? And I saw an opportunity to help people and to advocate to people that may not otherwise get that information or get that help. And that was really that was why I was making that suggestion or just an idea.
So is this like door-to-door knocking kind of thing? And this is back central?
Yeah.
Well, I think again, the opportunity is there. I think Cynthia's just identifying. I think what the Sustainability Council does with it, I think that's again where the discussion of your kind of goals and priorities and methodologies and things like that would come in. But that's probably something that's more a discussion for when you have a quorum.
Yeah, but just to kind of get so I think part of this is also like, let's take an idea and run with it, right? Like, let's get some stuff going here. So that's really valuable information. And I'm not saying that's a bad idea. That's a good idea. So what sort of materials does the city do typically like door-to-door knocking for mass save stuff through Victor, or like to give materials, or would this be a sort of like a new initiative that?
The city has existing materials to help promote the Mass Save program. We have those materials in our major languages, English, Spanish, Portuguese, and Khmer. And that's one of the things that Victor uses to kind of he's put things up at various places in the community to help people be aware of them. We've done community-wide mailings to make people aware of the programs. He goes to different events and things like that. He hasn't to this point done the door-to-door canvassing just because of, again, staff capacity. That's always one of our
But that's
limitations.
why we're here as volunteers. We want some direction to help. So let's focus on this area. So if you could give us the maybe the mapping of where this kind of like, I don't want to say what's this, like the
The
spot, dead zone.
the census block with limited internet access.
Yes, exactly. And maybe provide us with some materials. I live very close to Back Central, so I know the area really well. Maybe we can talk to people about that. So I don't think that really needs a vote. I think it's.
I mean, I can help you out when you ride bikes and stuff. through
Yeah,
that neighborhood.
So we're talking. Are we talking like by like Enterprise Bank, like that area, like the Enterprise Bank? That's what are the two street names that I always go down? Like close to like Whipple Street, like that whole area.
I don't have the exact street locations in front of us, but we can provide a map with that information and that
It's
location.
season for it. It's warm out. People are outside,
And I think
right?
I'll also
I mean,
get some clarification too about, I know that sometimes like it probably doesn't apply here because I think it's more for-profit companies, but just to provide extra protection, I think they also have a canvassing kind of thing, licensing things. So just make sure that's not needed for this kind of thing. And I'll be happy to provide the materials if that's something that the Sustainability Council wants to have as a priority.
yeah, I mean, I'd honestly be curious about like, so I guess that sort of makes sense because there's like lots of like cell phone shops around that place. So
Right.
it kind of makes sense that there would be. I'd be curious about how people that live in one of those dead zones get their information, or like, whatever. So
We would love to know that answer too. So,
well, this is
yeah.
great. Okay, so thank you for identifying that opportunity, Cynthia. So this is a very focused, this is what we want. This is like a very focused initiative that we can kind of run with. We'll get materials. And the things that we want to focus on are sort of like weatherization, participation in mass save, maybe some solar stuff, and just kind of talking to people. If there's things that we want to do while we're out there, like point people to the aggregation program or ask any other questions, let us know. Trees, we could look at the trees.
Do you know what neighborhood we're talking about here?
I think I know what neighborhood we're talking about.
All right. Yeah.
The one where like everything's very close together and there's no parking, that one?
Yeah. The one we're going door to door is like a little shaky. It's like Appleton Street, Middlesex Street, Spring Street, all that area down in there. Elliott Street, Jackson Street.
That's not Back Central.
It's not?
No.
Okay.
It's like Whipple Street.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's okay.
Yeah. So it's close.
We'll get the exact streets and
Yeah.
the kind of outlines of that particular census tract for you.
Okay. Well, this is great because honestly, it's probably like a place that gets missed with a bunch of things. So anyway, and we'll go get lunch at Four Seasons or something
Okay.
afterwards.
Yeah.
That's right in that neighborhood. Okay. All right. So we'll keep working on the Facebook stuff. I'll try and just connect with Sophie for her Gmail because that's probably the key to this whole puzzle is something like that. Anything else on that? Okay. And I will mention, I touched base with Carolyn McCarthy, who you might remember was on our um, the Sustainability Council and handled all our communications and was like extremely adept at that. And if there's any like specific communications initiatives that we have that can be like very like kind of like project based, she said she'd be willing to kind of like step in and help where she could. So if there's anything that you can think of that's project based communication for us to kind of step in on, she can definitely help with that. And she's like amazing at that kind of thing. So we'll just keep that in the back of your minds. All right, so the Bikes Friendly Cities application, which, Catherine, you have an update for us on that, and that's sort of Kevin's wheelhouse.
Yeah, so I had provided the bike-friendly application that Kevin provided to our transportation engineer to take a look at to see what information exists, what kind of, you know, resources can be brought to the table and how this fits within her larger kind of workload. So she said she reviewed a lot of the questions on the application. She did not think we would be able to get a designation, and she is down in staffing right now.
Okay.
She's working on getting a transportation planner on her staff, and she thought when that person is onboarded that it would be a good opportunity, a good thing for them to kind of get their feet wet in, and it would be something that they could take a look at for possibly putting in an application for next year. Now, when that person is going to be onboarded, I don't have a timeline on that. It is my understanding they might need to go out to advertise again for it.
Yep.
And so
It's hard to find
It's-
people.
it is. So that's the update there.
Okay, no, I appreciate
But
that.
she's still willing to come and speak with the Sustainability Council about other transportation related
That would be
issues
great.
if you give her kind of an idea of where to put it into her calendar.
Can
So
we do it for the next month's meeting?
if that is something that is of interest to the group, I can ask that.
100%.
Okay.
I feel like that's kind of like a, you know, it would be great to make that connection with her as a council. It would be great to have Kevin especially make that connection with her. And I don't know, I know the goal wasn't to get like designation as a bike-friendly city, because there's only like a handful that do. But I think the whole goal was like to learn some things in the process of the application, and then maybe better position ourselves for something like that maybe in the future. So it's kind of like the learning was in the journey of the application process. So, but I do understand that that her name is Liz, right? I do understand that Liz is understaffed, and I understand having too much of a workload. But it would be great to at least make that connection, since bike mobility is a huge, and transportation is a huge part of our goals as a council. So to have her kind of come in and like make that connection with us would be really great if she could come.
I am happy to invite her to the May meeting.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add, Brian?
Not really. I mean, it seems fine. It's just I don't know what the benefits are of filling out the application, and I guess what good does make doing the application or being like accepted or like as a bike friendly city. What benefits does that have? I guess why are we bothering with the application? I guess.
So I think it identifies, so it's kind of like, if you go through the application, it kind of might ask some questions. Kevin knows a lot more about this than I do. It probably will ask some questions that maybe you haven't thought of as a city. Maybe it requires you to like find data that maybe you have, but you never really looked at in a certain context.
It just seems like you would become a bike friendly city first, then fill out the application once you feel like you're pretty close to like being friendly.
I know,
You know,
because Lowell is probably not going to be that bike friendly.
it seems like it's super far off.
But I think it's like identifying where we would fail in the application.
I can see the learning in the process. Of
Right,
it. Yeah,
like might show like, well, if we want to be a bike friendly city, these are the spots where we have to grow. And I think that's part of what they offer as part of that service is, we'll evaluate your application, we'll evaluate the data that you provided, and as part of like the benefits to submitting an application, we'll, in our response, identify places where like you can really improve as a city.
makes sense.
which is kind of what we need. I mean, I bike and I bike in cities that are not Lowell, and it's so much more enjoyable and safe. And even though it's not always 100% safe, it's like, it's night and day if you're, yeah, I don't know. There's just a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity. So it does disappoint me to hear that it might not be a priority at this time for the transportation department, but I would say, especially with the link stuff happening and a lot of the new increased housing, especially for young professional types that probably use bikes a lot. It seems like something that Lowell would want to kind of get ahead of and prioritize, but I get it.
So I guess what's the process of getting something like this done? Is there somebody that plans this? Like, isn't there like,
I think that's the big challenge is that there's not existing staff capacity to take on something like this.
well, isn't there a plan in the roll forward that like plans have been made, right?
Well, I mean, there's plans and then there's the timeline for implementation of those plans. And a lot of the timelines may not necessarily be the same timeline that is envisioned with this designation application. Because a lot of these,
Plan that you could actually, is there a plan that you can like agree on and be like, this is a plan that we're going to move forward
well,
with?
I know that there's the Go Lowell or the Go Lowell plan that was completed and it talks about mobility of a lot of different kinds. It is.
Just like to catch the end of it.
Well, the
Come-
end of it happens at 8 o'clock.
Come on in. We're talking about bike mobility right now.
So I just kind of listen in.
Okay.
Yeah, you catch us in
Feel
the
free.
middle of it, so you're lucky.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you were here last month.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's the plan and then there's the implementation and the implementation have timelines and they also require funding. And so a lot of times what happens is you may have these large plans, but you have to secure the funding, you have to plan the timing, you have to plan
Right.
all
I get
this.
all that, but what's the very first tiny step to like who's making the plan?
So the plan, I believe, was created a couple of years ago, and I think these would probably be better questions for the transportation engineer since the implementation of that plan falls under her purview. So I
And
think,
that's Chris Hayes that did the go.
I believe he was the one that did the
He
good.
might come in because he's at NEMCOG now, so we might.
Well, I mean, you can, I guess
Smaller, like
what I would,
one tiny street might work. That's what I'm saying.
well, what I guess I would suggest is I would suggest waiting till you have the person that's in charge of the implementation right now. And that person is Liz. And she can give you a much more comprehensive idea of what is being done, what has been anticipated, what are the next steps in it. So I would think that that would be a better conversation for when you have her here at your meeting.
Okay.
Because otherwise it's just us speculating about what should and shouldn't be done, and that might be things that are already in place. So.
So do you think it's reasonable for her to have like a month's notice to try to get her? Because I know we talked about this last month to try
Yeah.
to get her to like a month. Meeting.
Yeah, I can send that invitation out after the meeting.
Okay. Okay. So Liz, so bike mobility is going to be our topic, our what's that? Cornerstone topic of the meeting next month. Let's get ready for bike. Well, maybe we can all bike here.
I can, yeah.
I can. Okay. We'll all bike here and we'll
Right.
report back. And if we all make it here
She should
alive,
bike here too.
if we all make it here alive, that will be a success.
All right.
That will be a great start. Okay.
Brian didn't make it.
We can make it. It's not that bad. You can die biking anywhere. Okay, so so that's our takeaway for the Bike Friendly Cities application. We're going to meet Liz at the next meeting. We're all going to bike here, and it's going to be great. Anything else on that topic? Okay. Solar PPA lease highlights. So, Yeah, so I thank you for sharing the like the full documents, 115 pages. So we have all the information we need. It's just I think for advocacy and like communication purposes, it would be really nice to have some like big hard hitting points, meaning like
There is in the packet of materials that's set in front of each person. The final page is the Lowell Solar projects. These are the ones that are currently under contract. It includes their cumulative kilowatts, the year one production, the PPA rate, year one savings, and the term savings. And so overall, we're looking to develop through this first tranche of projects about 2.4, almost 2.5 megawatts worth of projects, which will produce about 2.9 million kilowatt hours in their first year of production. PPA rates vary, but are still very reasonable compared to existing PPA rates, saving about $200,000 the first year. All of these are built out, 6.4 million over the term of the contract. You know, the challenge, of course, is going to be when can these be built out? And that's a product of the interconnection queue and getting the infrastructure in place.
So
So,
what are these PPA rates, like the savings? Are they compared to like a fixed rate per kilowatt hour?
yeah, well, no, I believe that the escalator on so for each individual project, they looked at the current rate for the account. And then I believe it was a 3% escalator for each year. And so year one savings are based on current rates within our accounts for these facilities. And then term savings include both the escalation in the rates as well as the degradation factor for production of solar.
Does each school have a different negotiated rate?
So each school has a different PPA rate, and that's
A
one
different PPA rate, but like the
Yeah.
savings. So like you know when you calculate the savings against their
that the
cost?
savings methodology is the same for each of the facilities. The savings amount will be different based on the system that is anticipated to be in that thing. Because obviously, you know, for example, you're going to get greater savings for a larger solar system versus a smaller one.
Can you give us, I mean, I'm sure this is part of a much bigger spreadsheet. Can you give us like how you're calculating the savings? Like so you'd have the year one savings and the term savings. You'd have the PPA rate and then you'd have the comparative.
That information is available. I'm not sure what extra value that adds because one of the
People
things,
are going to ask, what are we paying now and how do you calculate the savings?
well, I mean, I'm happy to provide that information. I guess the thing that I would say is the thing that we were glad to go with the power options is because they're a large consortium and you have a second set of eyes looking at the assumptions that are built into the savings, the costs themselves, and things like that. But I guess I can provide that information. I'm not sure I see the value in it.
And I could back into those numbers if I needed to.
I mean, you could, but again, I guess what is the purpose in that?
Because that's the open question with this information. Because you're saying, I mean, that's the incompleteness of this information, is you're saying the savings.
Well, the information is available. It wasn't included in the chart because I didn't feel that's the most relevant because the average person
I'm
is,
saving something. I want to know, how do I calculate, if I'm paying less, if I'm getting a sale on something and I'm paying less, I want to know, okay, compared to what? That's the value in that information.
I again, happy to provide that information, but it almost sounds like it's more of trying to second guess the process of the professionals that we've hired for this. And I guess that's where I get a little bit
Always
concerned.
second guess the process of the professionals that you've hired.
Well, you have multiple levels looking at the numbers. And so I guess I feel comfortable with the numbers. I guess I don't, again, and I'm happy to provide whatever information is necessary. My whole point, though, is what value does that bring? I can tell you that on average across our portfolio, each school is going to be different because of the type of school they are. Some have time of use rates, some do not. Some have demand charges, some do not. But on average, our average total cost of energy right now is somewhere, depending on the account, between 18 and 22 cents per kilowatt hour. So you're getting.
Why aren't we in the aggregation?
No, that you're thinking of the aggregation as the supply portion. You're not including the delivery portion. It's about half and half.
I did not realize it.
Yeah. So it does include the total because it's going to, all the solar production is going to offset both your delivery charges and your supply charges for each kilowatt hour that's produced.
So does this PPA rate include transmission and delivery also?
The PPA rate, so it will turn back transmission. So in your delivery charges, you have multiple kinds of things. You have transmission, you have delivery, you have transition, you have energy efficiency, you have EV, you have solar, it turns all of that back for each kilowatt hour produced by the solar. Because each
PPA rate is for just supply.
the PPA rate. So the way that a PPA works is that your savings are realized versus what the production is. So if I produced 100 kilowatt hours this month, that's 100 kilowatt hours I don't need to pay to National Grid with all of their charges. They're 18 to 22 cents per kilowatt hour. I pay a separate bill for the PPA rate at this 10 cents and change. And then the savings, that year one savings, is the delta between the two based on the production and based on the cost of energy at each of the facilities.
So is the savings calculated based on supply, like avoided delivery costs plus current supply costs?
Yes.
So that's why it would be so valuable to see that, because then you could say, okay, this PPA rate is amazing.
Well, this PPA rate is amazing. That's why you get your year one savings that are amazing.
But the reason why it would be so beautiful to see the comparison to your current costs is because it would drive home that point of like, you're avoiding all these delivery charges, these transmission charges, and then you're also avoiding the current supply charges that we're paying. So it would help us, it would help paint a clearer picture is what I'm saying.
I guess I can see
It's
what
a great thing. We should
I-
brag about this, you know?
I know, but I guess you need to consider your audience, and the average audience is not going to be thinking about delivery versus supply.
I don't
They're-
subscribe to that. I think everybody
They-
should know about delivery and supply costs, and I'll talk to everybody about delivery and supply costs until people get it, because everyday people should understand it. It's a monthly cost. It makes a big difference in people's wallets, and people should really understand it.
Well, I'm happy to provide our current rates. I just know that there has been confusion when you start talking about the different sides of the bill. We've had confusion for people that have come in to talk to Victor
Yeah,
and thinking about what they are. So I guess I don't see the point in adding an extra layer of confusion, but I'm happy to provide that information. Well, I guess that's a question that I would ask then is, how do you see the LSC's role in promoting this information and the value in that versus, what we do on the sustainability side of thing and how we inform the public about the things we're doing there? I guess that's probably where my disconnect is. I mean, these are definitely good stories, and we are telling them, through city council motion responses, through the different awards that we're getting, through the different communication channels within the city. I guess I don't understand the value of getting into the weeds and how the Sustainability Council would want to promote this information. So if you could give me a better idea of that, that'd be fantastic.
I mean, I think there's like a few things, right? So when you say that it's confusing for people to distinguish between transmission and delivery charges versus supply charges on their electricity bill, I totally agree with you. No one really pays attention to that. And while we're doing the door-to-door knocking in Back Central and we're, talking to people, like, that would be a great subject to also talk to about, like, hey, do you understand your own electricity bill? We all get it. Like, we all turn the lights on. Talking to people about that maybe not otherwise pay attention to that would be good. And like also understanding how, putting solar on your roof also helps you avoid all these transmission and distribution charges, not all of them, but a lot of them. And then talk to them about how, there's all of this solar going on in the city. And on a much larger scale, the city is also avoiding these delivery and transmission charges through really amazing PPA rates. So
if you say you're happy to provide it, you can provide it, and I think the more information people have, they tend to understand when you have more information. I think if you were able to show information, they would understand it. If you were to get it across.
I mean, I have spreadsheets all over the place with all of this kind of information. But I guess what I am emphasizing here is I think it's always important to think about who is your audience. And generally speaking, when we're dealing with the public, I think it's important to educate them at a level that is valuable to them. And even when Victor goes,
Scary language.
even
I know, I wonder what you mean.
well, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
When Victor has somebody come into his office, they are concerned about the cost of their electricity bill. My electricity bill is too high. I'm behind. I don't know what to do. And so what he does is he will do a bill checkup for them. And he'll do things like looking at their bill and screening them, for example, asking them if they do different kinds of benefits to see if they're eligible for the discount rate, to see if they're eligible for fuel assistance, helping them to fill out those applications, making those kinds of referrals directly. He also looks to see who their supplier is. Are they on a third-party supplier? Is the aggregation rate better? And from some of the egregious third-party suppliers that we've seen, the answer is yes. But even if he went through the details of you're paying 50 cents for the supplier right now and you're going to do 14, he's not going to go through the calculation to show them. He's going to get them enrolled in the aggregation because that's really what is valuable to them, is finding these solutions.
This is transmission and distribution. This is the wires going to your house.
No.
Just be explained.
Absolutely not, because that is not something that's valuable to the average person who is concerned about the cost of their electricity bill. They don't know what all goes into that. And honestly, in their day-to-day lives, they don't care. They're just very concerned because they're
But of the end number. I get it.
Yeah.
But this is a fundamental component of your electricity bill. So if you're concerned about the end number, the cake that gets baked, you should be concerned about the eggs and the flour that go into the cake and how each one relates to each other. Like that's.
I guess I would just agree to disagree on this because I think that, and maybe
Talk to people and see how they understand it. We can do this experiment, right?
I think I would feel uncomfortable with that only because I feel like it's probably getting into an area that's going to cause confusion and reflect not as well on the city, but I'm happy to take that back. I just think that when you,
Comfortable with us explaining.
Can I interject since I have a communications background just quickly?
please.
Yes. I think what I hear Catherine saying, or what I understand her to say, is that she fears that in an effort to communicate, there'll be miscommunication from the teacher to the student. So it's very important. It's not that you don't want to communicate the information, it's when you be very careful about how you communicate it so that it's understood with all the nuances, so that,
There is no teacher-student relationship. This is the information that we have. This is what we're telling you. It's like you just bring all the information that you have.
but you do want them to understand. So I guess,
If they understand it or not, it's their own problem. You just give them all that you have.
yeah, I mean, from a communications perspective, when I'm communicating something, the burden is on me to communicate that appropriately. It's not their problem, it's my problem.
So this is how, can I just say how a potential dialogue could go? And I'm just off the cuff, right? Hey, do you do you want to understand, do you have your electricity bill? Yes, it's too high. Let's look at it together. This is do you understand the different parts of your electricity bill and like how it kind of feeds into it? Because you have two parts, right? You have like two charges. You have like a sum of one charge, and then you have a sum of another charge, and then they add up, and then you get the customer charge, and then you get to the bottom line. Do you know what this charge means? Like, do you know what this charge is charging you for? The lines, the power lines. Do you understand what this charge is charging you for? The actual energy going to your home. That's the piece that I think that, I mean, I never really cared to notice it before I got into working in energy, so I'm sure a lot of people don't care to notice it either. So just explaining those two things, I don't think it really ties back to like savings and all this, but I think it starts a conversation where people become a little bit more empowered to look at their energy bill and say, I know exactly what that means. How many kilowatt hours? And this is, like I do think that empowers people, and there's a lot of rate cases that are going on.
I'm going to make an alternate suggestion. I hear what you're saying. I think there can be valuable in the education. The question is the forum. And I'll be honest with you, one of the things that I think would be very difficult would be a door-to-door, let me explain your electricity bill to you, because that's how a lot of these customers got into those poor competitive supply rates. What I would suggest as an alternative to consider, again, once you have what
We're not trying to sell people anything.
I understand that, but I just think there might be a better venue or a better mechanism to do that than a door-to-door kind of thing. Because I think education is an important component, but I think it would be more valuable to have kind of a smaller, public service announcement snippet kind of thing like that, could run on. Well, I mean, I was thinking of LTC.
Hello. I've had my hand up for a while. I wanted to
I'm
interrupt.
so sorry. We
Um,
didn't hear you.
No, that's all right. I'm just listening, and I think Catherine has a point because we did a television show for the Boston Society of Civil Engineers, and our biggest thing was people don't care about what's in the weeds until they flick the switch and the light doesn't come on, until there's a water main break, So I think you could use those opportunities when there's some sort of infrastructure incident. That's when it's gonna count and people are gonna absorb what you're trying to get to them. But I think it might be hard right now. They're not interested. I mean,
I hear
look
you.
at me, I'm running around today, you have so much to do. The last thing you need to do is sit down and look at this one extra thing that you didn't plan for.
No, I totally hear you. It would only be if we were going around and talking about weatherization and other things in this neighborhood that doesn't have a lot of internet, and someone was really interested in it. And then we said, let's take a look at your electricity bill. So I don't think it would be our like knock on the door, let's look at your electricity bill would be our first entree into like this conversation, but I think it would be part of a bigger conversation.
Yeah.
I think there could be opportunities, again, to convey the information in a different forum or format. I just don't think that trying to explain what a delivery versus supply is to the average person that you're starting a communication with, because one of the things that we're looking to do, we're looking to ramp up some of the things that Victor's doing for the year in terms of helping people to connect with the Mass Save programs. Part of what we envision as part of this, and again, I would add it to the group to consider, is thinking about, if we do a specific kind of seminar on weatherization, if we do a particular seminar around heat pumps, I think kind of an electric bill 101 is probably an appropriate kind of segue as part of that. I just don't think whole scale education, this is what this means, this is what this means, this is what this means, because I think, and particularly in the context of a door-to-door kind of thing, I think it's just going to lead to customer confusion. But I think there's value in the idea of educating people about these things. I just think you there's probably a better forum to do that, or a better way to do that.
Okay, so we kind of got off on a tangent. So you're saying, so we still have the idea of going door to door with the materials for weatherization and solar at this place that doesn't have, this area of the neighborhood that doesn't have internet, which will provide the census tract for. But we won't talk about electricity bills. Maybe we do something at, what's that club over there? It's not this.
Do we have anything online, like as far as outreach materials where we could say, hey, also, if you want to learn about your electricity bill, reach out to me and I'll send you this? Do we have anything ready to go?
We don't well, we have a sample electricity bill that Victor uses at his kind of open office hours. I'm not sure that that's something that is applicable to this door to door necessarily, but I do think a larger education effort around the electricity bill as part of some of these larger community events we're organizing around Victor's work, that would be something that would be relevant.
Okey-doke.
But we do, and I think you might not have been on. I apologize for not acknowledging that there was somebody else here, AC. But I think I did say when we began this conversation that we do have informational flyers about Mass Save translated into the major Lowell languages in addition to English. So we have Spanish, Portuguese, and Khmer. And I know that we've been working with our community partners and community-based organizations to help get this information out there as well. And so I think the Sustainability Council could also help to get the information out.
Are those materials online anywhere that we can access?
They are not, but I can provide them to you for the next meeting.
Okay. Or like a link that we can share?
There's no link, they're PDFs.
Okay. Can we post them online somewhere? Does that make sense?
I mean, I think, we could probably provide that. But I think another thing, and this is more related to kind of general coordination and things like that, is that I think, there are probably going to be a lot of different follow-ups from this meeting. And just given the constraints of our staffing and our time and things like that, I think we can get these things to you, but it's not going to be an immediate kind of turnaround thing. And there'll also need to be additional answers that be gathered. So I had reached out to some other board liaisons, and I think the expectation is more that whatever kinds of things are created in this meeting, that an update would be provided around the next meeting. So more of that kind of churn, that 30-day kind of churn. So it's not one of these things that if you ask me for this tomorrow, I can provide it because I'll be closing out grant applications tomorrow.
I
But
totally get it. But to send a PDF of something that already exists,
again, though, I have that information. I can gather that information, but
I'm
it's,
surprised that it's not already public facing.
well, I think we've already discussed that the Sustainability Division was just created, and we are in the process of revamping our website so that it's more helpful to the public facing kind of things. But like everything else in the city, there's a process and there's a time duration, and it has to be fit in among other departmental priorities.
So that's fine. I'll just do as much, I'm not gonna, I'll just put in my follow-up that the PDF for the weatherization education materials in the different languages will take a month to get, and we'll have it for the next meeting, hopefully. And that will be our follow-up.
I can update on the website if someone asked about that. So we've created a plan to update the website, and that is going up the chain of command. It has to be approved by lots of different people at a lot of different levels, and then it would have to be built out by MIS. So that's why it's not instant that you can just, and then they have to give you permissions to post because of the cyber attack and everything. So that's why it's not an instant, hey, can we just put this up tomorrow? It's just, we don't have, this just government takes a lot of permissions at a lot of different levels.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Need to be safe. But
Yeah.
if there's something like, if there's like a PDF, right?
Well,
You can send to us.
there is a dedicated website for the CFP, and that has the same kind of information. What's that? The Community First Partnership, Victor's work.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so, and I believe that I've shared that link with this group before, but I'm happy to reshare that.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think the link to like the weatherization materials is there though.
Well, the same information that's in there is on the website. So the same information that you can save 75 to 100% on the cost of weatherization, depending on income, that you can get a no-cost home energy assessment and can also be eligible for heating and cooling equipment. And, you know, kind of the bullet points are on the front page of that website. And then it takes you to a way that you can then take the next step and follow up with a home energy assessment, either through going through the web page or by calling a dedicated number. There's also options on that website to access the materials in Spanish, Portuguese, or Khmer in addition to English.
Okay, so those are the materials that we would be,
That's the information. It's just that the flyer is a one pager that just puts that information in a different format, but the information is exactly the same. It's just that you have an immediate way to take action at the website.
or we would need internet access.
I'm not saying that it's necessarily for this particular census block that we're talking about. I'm just talking about in general, and this probably,
Like maybe
This-
we can like take
well-
that information, maybe I can take that information that's on the CFP website and just like put it in a flyer to like
I think
have a PDF that's not needed internet for and just show to people.
I think that Victor has already done some different kinds of postings of that information around the community. I guess it's a little, it's a little confusing to me. Because I know that that link was shared a while back. I guess it doesn't matter. I'm going to withdraw.
Yeah, I think that the communications, like when you're making flyers and things like that, generally what I've been told is you have to get approval to pass those out on behalf of the city. And because this is a city board, somebody would have to go up the chain and get approved. Like you couldn't just make it and start handing it out.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
that's
we'll
what
just wait to
that's my
get
understanding.
Flyers from you all, or just look at the link and see what's at the link, and that's already there.
You're welcome to push the link out to your personal networks through your personal kind of social media and things like that. But you know, it's not like the city's not doing anything. We've hired a dedicated full-time person to help people connect in various ways to this. But I think
Be at this meeting, it'd be great to talk to him.
you can invite him to a future meeting. It's not the expectation that he come to these meetings on a regular
Not on a
basis.
regular basis, but just because I know we had talked about working with Victor.
Absolutely, that wasn't something that was listed specifically on the agenda, but he's happy to come to whatever kind of meetings as long as you provide sufficient time to talk about the things you want to talk about.
So is Victor like kind of like an energy broker between the energy people and the city? Is that what he is?
He's
He-
an energy advocate.
He-
he's an-
Forward-facing.
All right.
He's an energy advocate, and the reason that we created this position, it's a grant-funded position from multiple grants, is that historically Lowell has been underserved by the Mass Save program for a number of reasons. And one of the ways that they're trying to increase participation is by having somebody be the city face of the program.
So is
To-
he a government employee or an
He is.
Okay.
He's on my staff. Yeah, he's on my staff, and he's wonderful.
He's the person that we're going to probably be working with the most to like
If-
spread advocates, because one of the key
I
roles-
think that that's one of the ways that the Sustainability Council can move the needle most on reducing emissions in Lowell, helping to ensure a just and equitable transition, and really helping people to kind of hitting your different priorities of supporting the sustainability division and increasing weatherization across the city. I think that would be an excellent use of the Sustainability Council's time, energy, and passion. I think that it's kind of up to you whether that's actually something that you want to take on. And this kind of goes a little out of order. This is more under the new business for initiatives the LSC for the LS2C is just directed by the Sustainability Department. If you want to take that out of order, we can take that out of order, or
That goes actually right along with the one we have next, which is the Lowell Forward
Could I-
Plan sustainability portion.
I just have one more comment, if I may.
Yes.
That would be okay. So just the last communications comment. So I noticed, there was a lot of discussion about, the people who don't have internet and some kind of jokes about like, well, posting things, about not the people who don't have internet, for example. So,
Wasn't a joke.
well, yeah, but what I was going to bring forward is that sort of to think there's a lot of different audiences to tackle a lot of different ways. So yeah, you have your internet audience, your people that you're going to get with your Facebook, but then there's people that so when you're going to get door to door. So for example, that's two different campaigns. So when Catherine brought up putting things online, and there was the reference made about well, for the people who don't have internet, no, you're going to channel those things to different
Well, we're talking
groups.
specifically about this initiative to tackle the people that don't have internet. So
Right, but she was talking, you had moved on and you guys were talking about, and the PDFs and those sorts of things.
I'm talking about PDFs because that's what we can distribute to people without internet.
Yeah, so, but when she talked about sharing it on your networks, I believe, that was just the comment made. And I just wanted to say from a communications standpoint that you'll target different, there's some people you're going to use all social media, all internet, and some people that you're just that's not going to be your focus. You're going to be focused on person-to-person contact, just from a communication standpoint.
Okay, so should we go on to the Lowell Forward Plan sustainability portion, plus I think, Catherine, what you were thinking to take out of order, which kind of can be combined into one, is the other initiatives for LSC as directed by the Sustainability Department. Do you think that makes sense?
yeah, I think those can be combined. We provided a place in here for the Lowell Forward piece. I believe you had shared out the overall link to the plan. And so I just want to be cognizant it's about 20 till 8 right now. I know there's still a lot of items in the agenda, so I'm not going to go through kind of line item by line item, but the big goals are to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050, to build resilience within the community, promote the clean energy economy, and energy equity. We want to ensure that decarbonization goals do not result in disproportionate increases in energy burdens for our most vulnerable residents. And I apologize, I had printed out one extra page, which starts to get into some more of the parks and open spaces piece of it.
Okay, thank you for printing this out.
But overall, it's kind of a lot of these things, though, do specifically, as you look at the actions, a lot of them do talk about supporting the work of the energy advocate, because a lot of the things that he does are very comprehensive. He tries to provide those wraparound services for residents in need and to really help people who haven't been served by the energy efficiency programs, to make them aware, number one, that they exist, to help to make those initial connections and those direct referrals to the agencies that are implementing them, and to address any problems along the way, and to gather feedback at the end of the process so we can make it more helpful as it goes along. And as I had indicated in some of my correspondence, I believe that one of the ways that the Sustainability Council can really make a big impact in Lowell. We know that our buildings are the biggest piece of our emissions in Lowell. We know that the Commonwealth is in the midst of a significant energy transition to get to net zero by 2050. We're aligning our goals in the Lowell Forward Plan with the goals of the Commonwealth and ways that we can do that. So I think if you, as a sustainability council, want to take on different ways to help support and get the information out about the Mass Save program through these door-to-door kinds of things, whether it's through, you know, your own personal channels, whether it's helping at events. Victor attends multiple events. If there are opportunities and interests and people want to be there at his side to kind of help him explain to the people what these kinds of things. There might also be an additional training opportunity. They have not filled us in on a lot of the details, but I wanted to mention it. We have regular check-ins with the team that runs the Community First Partnership. And one of the things that they're offering the communities participating is training for heat pump coaches. And this would be kind of more like a heat pump 101 kind of thing, where you could learn more about the technology, about its benefits, about sharing those benefits with others, about how the Mass Save program can incentivize those sorts of things. If that's something that anybody on the Sustainability Council or the Sustainability Council as a group would like to take up, we expect to get more information on that within the next month. And so I'm happy to provide those kinds of things. I think it's one of those things where even though the technology has been around for a while, there have obviously been a lot of advances in the efficacy and efficiency of current heat pump systems. I know there are members of the council who have heat pump systems and have experience with those kinds of things. And I think that kind of proof of concept and that level of knowledge is something that would be very valuable in the work that Victor does and very valuable to Lowell at large. It also fits into our master plan, our Lowell Forward Plan goals. And so I think if that's something that is of interest, we're also looking through Victor's work to do kind of targeted mailings, particularly for those.
About the heat pump. So just,
Yeah.
I know you're talking about it a lot, but I just want to like make sure I don't forget to ask
Mhm.
that question. How, I know the heat pump stuff, great. I think heat pump coaches would fit great with this
Mhm.
Full Sustainability Council, and AC and Brian, let me know if you disagree. But looking to get more information in the next month or so, do you have any more details on what sort of like role or information you're expecting to get, or kind of?
I have told you everything that I know about it, just that there's an opportunity to train heat pump coaches through the Community First Partnership to educate people on heat pump systems and help them to convert systems in their homes.
Like door to door?
I think that's up to the community to kind of determine. One of the ways that we think would be a really valuable kind of thing is, sending out mailings, targeted mailings to particularly those for whom heat pumps work very well economically, those with delivered fuels like oil, propane, those that have electric resistance heat. So what's that?
How can we help with the mailings part?
So that's going to be more on our side of things. Another kind of side-by-side outreach opportunity we see are creating smaller postcards that can be posted in prominent community locations. And I think that's maybe something that the Sustainability Council can help us to brainstorm on and help us to kind of increase our reach and things like that.
So do you want to set up a meeting between the city and the Sustainability Council just to focus specifically on the heat pump coach stuff whenever you get the information?
So I think it would make sense to have it as an agenda item for your monthly meeting, probably around probably the July timeframe, I think, is when they're looking at potentially rolling it out. But I'll see if I can get some additional updates on what the timing is that they're looking at for that. But they tentatively said soon, this summer. So, but sometimes that's also been longer than expected.
Maybe do like a heat pump subcommittee or something.
Well, I think it's going to be challenging to do subcommittees. Well, right now there are only 4 confirmed members of the Sustainability Council. So even if 2 of you meet, that's a quorum. And so my recommendation would be to scratch the subcommittees until you get your membership up to at least 8 people, so that can be more productive kind of sessions.
I guess what I meant by that was by like just identifying people on the Sustainability Council that like want to be involved.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
Yeah.
every month, like, we don't have to wait another month to talk about things. We can kind of like.
Well, I mean, if you can, if you as a body want to determine who is interested in this opportunity, I'm happy to provide the information when it's available. But I think, deciding as a body if this is how you want to contribute to the city, our goals, and to support the sustainability division as kind of identified by your priorities. Did you want to say something, Sylvia?
What I'm not sure is coming across is that if 2 people meet, then that is a quorum, and then that breaks open meeting laws.
Exactly.
Having dinner as a family.
Well, I mean,
So I think,
Well, I mean, it's definitely one of those challenging things, and I think that
because we only have 4 official members. So if 2 people meet, it violates open meeting law. 'Cause it's outside of this, my brother and I go for a walk with the dogs.
no, if you speak
there-
about this stuff, I mean, not if you go for,
Yeah.
yeah. So if you speak about what's official business of the city I mean, nobody's, it wouldn't be you and your brother hanging out and enjoying your company. It's when your official city.
I
business.
know you just said like not to have subcommittees and whatnot, and I understand that, but I'm thinking it seems like we have a large part of our duties, if you will, are outreach and education. And on that note, with the recycling committee, I don't want to skip ahead, but since there's only 10 minutes, I'm trying to get it in. I did not see the poll come through as for a meeting, but the one I did ask Stephen on the side, like, hey, what did you do? Like monthly, what were your duties? What did you guys do? So he explained to me that a big part of what they've done is this 270 ordinance revision is when the recycling committee was formed, and it is the law still, so it needs to be addressed. But they're talking about supporting the DPW, the waste and the solid waste and recycling. So I need to learn what this 270 ordinance is that needs to get updated. And also the cart life, I guess all 50,000 carts of the city are reaching the end of their functional life. Those need to be addressed. And then he also mentioned that there's cross-contamination problems since China left the scene as far as taking our recycling goods is a huge problem. It's costing the city about $250,000 in fines annually. I didn't know about that. I'm not sure how we can do anything about it, but I think I wanted to meet with the DPW and I have a better sense of just saying, hey, how can I support you? I'm gonna say, I wanna support you dealing with these things. What do you want me to do?
Yeah, and I still need to work with I will commit to getting that on the calendar before the next meeting. But I know that we do have a full-time person in that position right now. And I know that he has been looking at these kinds of issues and he's very forward thinking. And so I'm sure he would appreciate the input. So I'll reach out to UAC and then I'll also bring Stephen, Jonathan, and into the conversation. So
Yeah, that'll be awesome. I mean, I still kind of want to keep going, and I'm glad to see that there may be some way I can be useful. And again, it seems like we can take the opportunity if we do the what is the folk festival? We have the table and have flyers and outreach there. I mean, there's
Yeah.
other opportunities that I don't know about that maybe we could be doing outreach.
Yeah,
Like you mentioned, Victor goes to a bunch. I don't know about him.
I'm glad thank you for that update, AC. Thank you for being involved in that, in the recycling stuff. And bringing up the folk festival would be great. I think doing a table there would be great if we could staff it. And that might be a good opportunity to talk about recycling, but also the heat pump stuff, since that's going to happen in July too. So kind of thinking ahead to that, I think makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'm even thinking, well, you should have a show like we did. I mean, ours was on all infrastructure, but a sustainability Lowell show where we can break down things in nitty gritty and educate. And I don't know, does anyone watch those? I have watched a few of them, and some of them are interesting, but some of them are not.
I hope you don't think the sustainability feature was boring.
You know, I did not see that.
Oh, okay. I sent a link out, I think, in last month's update, but I'll resend that if you're interested.
Share it on our Facebook page, but we could.
Well, that's okay. It is shared on the city Facebook page and YouTube page, so there are other avenues. But I think right now it's about 6 minutes till 8, and so I didn't know if the body had a thought about additional things you'd like to discuss. I know there's still multiple items on the agenda.
Yeah, I always think we're like gonna end sooner than 8 o'clock, and then we never do. But so I think one quick item I just wanted to like ask a quick question on, and then we can get to maybe the other items was the link. If there's I don't know if the sustainability department is associated with that Lowell Innovation Network corridor thing that's happening with UMass, and then whether or not there's any sort of community benefits plan being talked about as part of that.
I reached out to the sustainability division specifically when I saw this line or this item on there. They indicated that there was no specific kind of community benefits plan, but they are very excited about the development overall.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay. Okay. Well, that's that. My thought is that there might be able to be some sort of like bike mobility thing that we could get involved in with that. Some tree planting that I'm sure UMass Lowell is probably already thinking about. But you know, just to
And I think that when the transportation engineer comes in, I know she also has coordinated closely with UMass Lowell around some different initiatives across the city, so she might be able to provide more insight into that.
awesome. Can we add that to hopefully if Liz is able to make it, can we add that to like just ask her if there's any updates on that specifically? That would be great.
Yeah, I know there's no specific community benefits plan, but I think it is a more comprehensive plan to really address that corridor. So, yeah.
That's very exciting. Okay. Is there anything else? Anyone else? I know we still have to get to the grant and sustainability.
I was going to say I can give a
Yeah.
1-minute update on items F and G. So, status of the community choice aggregation, how can the LSC assist? So, we have executable pricing. We're not going to roll that out until we get a ruling from the DPU to see if we actually can offer opt down and opt up choices. Stay tuned on that. Grants and Sustainability Department updates.
I'm sorry, did you get a price per kilowatt hour on the default for that yet?
Yes.
Do you know what it is?
No. Well, I know what it is, but we're not publicly releasing that information until it gets closer to the time where it actually takes. It's locked in, signed, sealed, delivered. Yeah. All right. So for the grant and sustainability department updates, those were provided along with the agenda and the meeting minutes. So if there are any questions on those, happy to answer those. But basically, we're still continuing to move forward to implement all of the above solutions and still getting awarded grants, still closing out grants, still applying for lots of other grants. Grants.
Are there any specific ones that you want us to pay attention to?
I think if you just wanted to review the list, I'll update it for next month's meeting as well. I think the one that has changed status, we were awarded a new grant, which is the Energy Futures Grant from DOE. We are partnering with Andover, Methuen, the Northeast Energy Efficiency Partnership, Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, and housing authorities in Andover, Methuen, and Lowell to try and create decarbonization playbooks for public housing, help to engage the residents around these conversations, and helping to move forward and helping to enable and build capacity within their systems. So that was the biggest one that we received. We also had submitted our climate pollution reduction grant.
360,000 Lowell's portion, or is that,
That's the overall portion.
do you know what Lowell's portion is?
Lowell as a city will not directly get funding for this. We want it to go all into the beneficiaries of this. So the housing authorities and those creating the decarbonization playbook.
Okay. Do you know how much is going to Lowell Housing Authorities?
I do not. I think that's still part of the negotiations. It's in the negotiation stage with DOE right now.
Got it. Okay.
And then, so we are continuing to work on grants, continuing to pursue grants. I have about 6 between now and the middle of June. I think I might have lost track. And we're Victor's continuing to help our residents. We're continuing to move energy efficiency projects forward, and we're continuing to advance solar across our portfolio. So that's my updates there.
Anything that we can help on that you're working on with the grants yet?
So the next several grants that are coming up are ones that are more formulaic. So I don't know that there's necessarily a lot that the LSC can contribute. It's more municipally focused energy efficiency projects. One of them is a formula grant. The other one's a competitive grant, but it's, again, also city buildings. But
Master plan.
so that's one we're continuing to pursue and continuing to figure out how do we do this. I know one of the challenges and complications that we've run up against are some changing regulations regarding ADA and our infrastructure. So we have an internal working group across different departments to figure out how to address that while still moving forward.
ADA.
Yeah, so there are different, I am still getting information on it, but basically the clearance that you need to have on your sidewalks can limit how and where you plant trees and how you create the infrastructure for that. So that's going to be something that we're going to be trying to get solutions around that right now, but they're very new kinds of guidelines.
Yeah, I mentioned that when we first started talking about heat island effects and everyone was saying plant trees, plant trees. I'm like, have you seen how narrow some of these sidewalks are? You can't just
Yeah.
plant a tree in the middle because of ADA. But there were other things that I looked into, and there's even, I mean, you would need similar height buildings across the street from one another, but there's shade vines that you can grow. They'll grow on a wire that you train. So it'll go from the sidewalk, but it'll take a minimum footprint and go up the building and then across the street. And it's pretty and it's festive.
And I think those are the kinds of creative solutions we'll be looking to integrate, and also trying to think about how we can encourage and engage residents. Even if we don't have the clearance on the sidewalk, do they have areas in their yards and different things like that? But it's definitely a work in progress, and we're still committed to moving it forward. So
In the grant process, just 'cause I don't really know.
Mhm.
You're getting 93,000, but do you have a plan? Do you need a plan in place to get that money? Or do you think
no, the 93,000 allowed us to create our master plan,
Okay.
which will,
Going after another 100,000 for the implementation.
so that's yes,
93 grand is
yes, so that's already that piece of it was completed. It included,
plan for a quarter of that. Just give me that money.
well, you're also working with city and you need prevailing wages and you need, you know,
Plan?
Can I ask you, so you mentioned an internal working group across departments. Does it make sense to, like, for your own bandwidth capacity, like, does it make sense to maybe have, I don't know, someone like Brian be part of that, not to volunteer you?
I think that's probably in this particular instance not that appropriate because it's still, there's some things that are things that I think the city and municipal employees need to take on. And then I think some things that the boards can supplement with. And I don't think that this is a case given the newness of everything and trying to create a comprehensive strategy that can be taken on by a board member at this point.
Okay.
But I appreciate the ask.
Did you just call me a board member?
Well, that's true. I guess you're not officially a board member right now.
If it was deemed appropriate, would that be something that you'd be interested in?
Yeah, I don't
weighing
think.
in on?
Yeah, I don't think it's that complicated, to be honest.
Okay, so if it makes sense, if it does get deemed appropriate, and the city, can use the help and the weigh-in, if there's an internal working group that Brian can be associated with or weigh in on, I think there's lots of other city
Well, I think
initiatives that
for
Sustainability Council has been involved in, so.
I think for purposes of, kind of collaboration and things like that, I think the Sustainability Council would probably have a bigger role as we start to roll out some of the recommendations of the urban forest master plan, figuring out where we can get tree plantings, how it fits within the constraints that we have, and also thinking about, how do we engage volunteers? How do we do those kinds of things? And I would definitely keep you alert of opportunities like that. But for these internal working groups, it really should just be municipal staff.
I will take what you said and let it be known, municipal staff only at the table.
For this particular piece of it.
Does the municipal staff have an arborist that can weigh in there, or
We have,
who's the staff? How
well, it's much more complicated than that, but
I know it's an engineering issue with the sidewalks.
yeah, it's an engineering issue. You have a lot of you have planners, you have engineers, you have DPW, you have the tree warden, you have other utilities that have.
That guy, I know the engineer guy reasonably. I think it's him. I don't know.
Having an arborist at the seat at a seat at the table, I can't see how that works, but
I will.
record as volunteering, so.
I appreciate the added support. It is 8:05 right now. I didn't know if there was an opportunity for me to just talk about an upcoming event that people here might be interested in. Tomorrow afternoon at South Common from around 12 to 4, they're going to be having an Arbor Day celebration. There'll be a lot of information on kind of the evolution of the South Common and some of the future plans that are looking to do that. There's also going to be activities with some of the school students from the STEM academies to help label some of the trees around the Arboretum within the South Common. So if you're interested in that, it'll be at the South Common, which is across from the train station, and there will be members of the Department of Planning and Development there. Victor will also be there if you want to stop by and say hello, just helping to, again, get the word out in these community related events.
Yeah, that sounds like a great event. Give us a little bit more of a heads up if you can next time. To be able to join.
When is
Well,
this
I
happening?
know that it was sent through the city's Facebook page as well. So this is the South Common tomorrow. I know.
I'm gonna look and
But-
see if there's a community board on either the Lowell Dog Park or the Chelmsford Dog Park, because you get a good mix of people in those places, so.
Awesome, well, thank you. I know we're over time, sorry, everybody.
Yeah, all right. Do you want me to make a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, please, it's just,
I make the motion to adjourn.